Today I am going to explain in 11th Biobotany first unit. In first unit, first chapter, the living world. In living world, the concept of a classification of living world. Our Earth of planet exhibit a diverse group of living organisms. These diverse group of living organisms consist form as a biodiversity. So biodiversity is a nothing but a diverse group of living organisms. Different kinds of living organisms. Bio is nothing but a life living. Diversity, various group of different kinds of living organisms. Different kinds of species constitute to form our biodiversity. Nothing but biodiverse, biosphere condition. In this biodiversity, each individual group of organisms is known as a species. So species is a nothing but each individual group of organisms is known as a species. The concept of the species was given by John Ray, scientist. The definition of the species was given by Ernest Mayr, scientist. So John Ray and Ernest Mayr, scientist. So the concept of the species was given by John Ray and Ernest Mayr, scientist. So scientific definition of the species was given by Ernest Mayr, scientist. According to John Ray and Ernest Mayr, so species is a nothing but a group of individual organisms. These species are having the same parentage, nothing but originated from the same parents. Two opposite springs are a single parent. These are morphologically, genetically may be similar or exact copy to parents. These species have the ability to transfer the characters from parents to another generation. Next generation, this is known as a species. So species is a nothing but a group of individual organism having the same parentage. These have the capability to transfer the parental characters to next generation. So species is a reproductive isolation. So freely mating between among these species transfers the characters among this individual group of organisms. This known as a species. These all species are growing in a different geographical areas. Each geographical area has its own flora and fauna. Each geographical as its own flora and fauna. So flora is a nothing but the total plant species are present in a particular area. In unit of area, this is known as a flora or vegetation. So fauna is nothing but the total animal species are present in a particular area. In a unit of area, this is known as a flora and fauna. So each geographical area has its own flora and fauna. These all organisms in each geographical area shows the all characteristic features, any two characteristic features of living organisms. Then in the year of 2011, so Mora et al. So Mora et al. Mora and his associate try to estimate how many number of species are present in biosphere or biodiversity. According to their estimation, our biodiversity has approximately 8.7 millions of species. So out of this 8.7 million species, so 1.7 to 1.8 are the known species, identified and described species. In 1.7 to 1.8, approximately 1.25 are animals, then 0.5 are plants. So remaining rest are the animals, microbes, etc. In biodiversity, the study of all these species separately is a very difficult process. Study of all these organisms separately is a difficult. That's why keep these all organisms, place these organisms into groups is a mandatory. By placing organisms into convenient groups or categories, we can easily study about all these organisms. So we can easily know about all these organisms, not only in one place, throughout the world wide. So grouping these organisms based on characteristic features of individual organism, nothing but a species. So arrangement of these organisms into convenient categories or groups based on similarities and dissimilarities. So these characteristic features are easily observable characteristic features. Maybe grouping the organisms based on simply identifiable morphological characters. So this grouping of organisms is known as a classification. So classification is nothing but grouping the organisms into convenient categories based on similarities and dissimilarities. So easily identifiable characteristic features, maybe morphological features, is known as a classification. So what is the need of classification of living world? So classification is a need to convenient to study of living organisms. So need is a convenient to study of living organisms and knowledge about adaptation of characters. Knowledge about adaptation of character. So adaptation is nothing but evolution of characters. If any change takes place in environment, organism need to adapt to that particular changed environment. Due to these changes, organism also may change temporarily or permanently in body parts of organism. By these changes, organism easily adapted to that particular changed environment is known as a adaptation. So this classification will be useful for understand adaptation of organism. What type of changes takes place in body parts of organisms in the course of evolution. So knowledge about evolution. Knowledge about evolution and also knowledge about a series of the evolution. So what type of changes are takes place taking in a particular species from first to still now. So series of evolution characters, knowledge about evolution, then series of evolution of characters. At the same time, to understand about phylogenetic relationship. Phylogenetic relationship. So phylogenetic characteristic features, nothing but evolution of characters. So this classification will be useful to understand relationship among the all these species. And same time, this classification will be useful to discovery of a new species also. So need of classification is to convenient to study of living organisms, knowledge about adaptation, knowledge about evolution, to know the series of evolution, phylogenetic relationship, to discovery of new organisms. Taxonomy. So classification of living organisms is a nothing but a taxonomy. So the meaning of taxonomy, so taxa or taxos is a nothing but a one category, one group in taxonomic classification system. So any category in taxonomic classification system is known as a taxon or a taxa, singular and a plural. So nomos is a nothing but rules. So based on the rules and regulation, categorize arrangement of the organisms into convenient categories or groups is known as a taxonomy. So taxa is nothing but one category in a plant or animal classification system. Any category in classification system is known as a one taxon or taxa plural. So nomos is nothing but rules and regulations. So based on the rules and regulation, classifying the living organisms into convenient categories. So based on observable characteristic features is known as a taxonomy. The term taxonomy introduced coined by A.P. Control scientist. The term taxonomy introduced coined by A.P. Control. So taxonomy is a branch in biological science. It deals the principles and procedures of classification of living organisms. So taxonomy deals principles and procedures of classification system, both the plant classification and animal classification system. This includes identification, then nomenclature, then classification. So taxonomy includes identification of living organisms, nomenclature of living organisms, and classification of living organisms. Then systematics. So systematics is nothing but a taxonomy. We can use a taxonomy and systematics interchangeable condition. Both are synonyms. The term systematics first used by Linnaeus. The term systematics was first used by Linnaeus in his publications Species Plantarum and Systema Naturae. These systematics also include identification, nomenclature and classification of living organisms. So, along this one, phylogenetic relationship of organisms, nothing but grouping the organisms into convenient categories based on phylogenetic relationship. Include with identification, nomenclature, classification, consider the phylogenetic relationship. Evolution of characters is known as systematics. Then neo-systematics. Neo-systematics is nothing but modern taxonomy. Biosystematics, population taxonomy. The term neo-systematics introduced by Huxley scientist. The concept of neo-systematics was introduced by Huxley scientist. Nothing but modern taxonomy. According to neo-systematics, species is a product of evolution. Species is a product of evolution. A neo-systematic considered the all known characteristic features of living organism for the taxonomy and considered the all evidences from all branches of the biological sciences like cytology, anatomy, embryology, physiology, molecular biology, genetics, etc. etc. So neo-systematic. According to neo-systematics, species is a product of evolution. A neo-systematic considered the all known characteristic features of a species. Along this one, considered the all evidences from all branches of the biology. Neo-systematics, modern taxonomy, population taxonomy. Then branches of taxonomy. So classical taxonomy or alpha taxonomy. Classical or alpha taxonomy. So classical alpha taxonomy means classify the living organisms based on morphological traits. This is known as a classical or alpha taxonomy. Second one, morphological taxonomy. Morphological taxonomy. That means classify the living organisms based on morphological characters. Second one, natural taxonomy. That means consider the natural affinities, natural similarities, sharing of natural characters among the organisms. Natural taxonomy. Fourth one, phylogenetic taxonomy. Phylogenetic. So phylogenetic means classify the living organisms based on phylogenetic relationship, evolution of characters. Fifth one, experimental taxonomy. Experimental taxonomy. So here consider the genetic relationship, experimentally genetic relationship. Classify the living organisms based on experimental evidences, genetic relationship. Chemical taxonomy, chemotaxonomy. Chemotaxonomy. So based on the biochemicals, what type of biochemicals are present in cell or body of organisms, chemotaxonomy. Seventh one, numerical taxonomy. Numerical taxonomy. So based on the shared characters, for these characters given the numerical codes and numbers. So give the importance to all codes equally. So in numerical taxonomy use the computers, systems. Next one, cytotaxonomy. Cytotaxonomy. So cytological characters like a chromosomes, etc. So karyotaxonomy. Karyotaxonomy. So karyotaxonomy means based on the characteristic of nucleus and chromosomes. So cytotaxonomy, cytological characters, cytoplasmic characters in cytoplasm, number of cell organelles, nucleus, etc., etc. But karyotaxonomy based on the characteristic features of nucleus and chromosomes. Practical taxonomy. So it is based on practical approach, nothing but uses of organisms. So these are branches of taxonomy. From the ancient times, number of scientists were made a number of attempts to classification of living organisms, but all these classification systems are only based on simple identification characters, nothing but morphological characters. So they were classifying the living organisms not based on scientific characteristic features, so only based on easily identifiable characteristic features of morphological characteristic features are by the usage of the organisms, etc. So in this one, Theophrastus. So Theophrastus considered as a father of botany. Theophrastus considered as a father of botany and father of ancient taxonomy. So he classified the plants based on morphological appearance, herbs, then shrubs and trees. So Theophrastus classified the plants based on morphological characters, herbs, shrubs and trees. Next one, Aristotle. So Aristotle is a father of biology and a father of zoology. So he classified the animals into two groups, anima and anima. So anima and anima. So those organisms with red blood. So those organisms, animals have red blood. These are included in anima. Then anima without red blood. Without red blood. So Aristotle was classifying the animals into two groups, anima and anima, with red blood and without red blood. Next one, Linnaeus. So Linnaeus first time used some scientific characteristic features. So he classified the plants based on stamens, number of stamens, length of the stamens and anthers. So lineage was classify the organisms into two kingdoms. So these are plantae and animalia. So plant and animal. He included places the all plants, including bacteria in plant, all animals in animalia, based on the cell wall. If which organisms having the cell wall, these all are included in kingdom of plant. Then which organisms are not having the cell wall, these all are included in the kingdom of animalia. It is nothing but a two kingdom system of classification. So Linnaeus proposed the two kingdom system of classification. He classified the organisms into two kingdoms, plantae and animalia. All plants includes bacteria in a plant kingdom, all animals in animalia. But two kingdom system of classification had the number of demerits. So what are these? Linnaeus was not classify the organisms into separately prokaryotes and eukaryotes. He kept the both the prokaryotes and eukaryotes in same kingdom. So for example, bacteria is a prokaryotic organism, then plants are eukaryotes. So both are he placed in the same kingdom, plant. He could not differentiate, he did not differentiate prokaryotes and eukaryotes. He was placed both the prokaryotes and eukaryotes in same kingdom. So he did not differentiate the prokaryotes and eukaryotic organisms. Prokaryotes and eukaryotes. At the same time, he did not differentiate autotrophs and heterotrophs. He did not consider the nutrition of organisms, autotrophs and heterotrophs. So generally plants are autotrophic nature, then bacteria some are autotrophs and some are heterotrophs. Fungals are all are heterotrophs. All these organisms he placed in a same kingdom, plant. So he did not differentiate autotrophs and heterotrophs. He did not consider the cell wall constituents. Cell wall constituent. For example, plant cell wall composed by cellulose, fungal cell wall composed by chitin, like a material. So due to usage of two kingdom system of classification, not sufficient to study about living organisms. In the course of time, increased the evolution. So due to the course of time, increased the consider of more number of characteristic features to classify the living organisms gross with morphological characters. Then three kingdom system of classification. In the year of 1866, Ernest Haeckel. In the year of 1866, Ernest Haeckel proposed the three kingdom system of classification. He first time introduced the kingdom Protista. The Plantae and so in the year of 1866, Ernest Haeckel proposed a three kingdom system of classification. Three kingdoms are Protista, Plantae and Animalia. So first time he introduced the kingdom of Protista. So Protista includes all unicellular eukaryotic organisms. But in three kingdom system of classification, unicellular organisms, prokaryotes, bacteria also included in this kingdom. Protista. Next one, four kingdom system of classification. In the year of 1856, Copeland. In the year of 1856, Copeland scientists proposed the four kingdom system of classification. So four kingdoms are Protista, then Monera, planted there and he made it. So he separated the prokaryotic organism. He placed the all prokaryotic organisms in Munira. In three kingdom system of classification, Protista includes all unicellular eukaryotes, but prokaryotic organisms include in the kingdom of plant. But in four kingdom system of classification, he was separated. He placed all prokaryotic organisms in the kingdom of Munira. So first time he introduced kingdom Monera. So Protista include all unicellular eukaryotes, then Monera includes prokaryotic organisms, all plants in plant and all animals in animal. Next one, in the year of 1869, R.H. Whittaker proposed the five kingdom system of classification. Five kingdom. So R.H. Whittaker proposed the five kingdom system of classification. According to him, five kingdoms are Protista, then Monera, fungi, plants, and mineral. So he introduced the new kingdom fungi in five kingdom system of classification. In five kingdom system of classification, he classified the living organisms based on characteristic features of cell structure, complexity of the cell. It is a prokaryotic cell or a eukaryotic cell. Then cellular organization. Next one, mode of nutrition. Then mode of reproduction. Phylogenetic relationship. So R.H. Whittaker proposed the five kingdom system of classification. He classified the living organisms based on characteristic features of cell structure, complexity of cell structure, then cellular organization, mode of nutrition, mode of reproduction, then phylogenetic relationship of organisms. First time he introduced a new kingdom of fungi. Then merits of five kingdom system of classification. So what are the merits of five kingdom system? So he classified the living organisms based on the complexity of the cell structure. So five kingdom system of classification shows the complexity of the cell structure. Cell structure. He also considered cellular organization. So classifying the living organisms based on cellular organization. Cellular organization. Then mode of nutrition. Mode of nutrition. It also shows the phylogenetic relationship. He also considered the evolution of characters. So these are the merits of five kingdom system of classification. So five kingdom system of classification shows the complexity of the cell structure, cellular organization, mode of nutrition, phylogenetic relationship, etc. At the same time, five kingdom system of classification also have the new kingdom fungi. That means all fungal species included in separate kingdom fungi. Then demerits. So demerits of five kingdom system of classification. So generally in Monera included the all prokaryotes. In plant included all plants. But in Monera, in bacteria, some are photosynthetic condition, some are non-photosynthetic. That means autotrophs and heterotrophs are present. Then in plant, all are autotrophic in a condition. So he included both autotrophs and heterotrophs in same kingdom of Monera. So in case of bacteria and cell wall nature also. it is a one demerit in five kingdom system of a classification. That's why these are two kingdoms are a heterogeneous condition. That means plants and Monera heterogeneous. That means not clearly differentiate autotrophs and heterotrophs. At the same time, he did not place the viruses in a five kingdom system of a classification. So why? Because viruses are a cellular condition. So these are considered not a living things due to lack of metabolism. So these are demerits of five kingdom system of classification. Kingdom, then criteria. Kingdom and criteria. So kingdoms are Monera, then Protista, fungi, then plantae, then animal. So first criteria is cell structure. Cell structure. So complexity of a cell structure. So in Monera prokaryotes. In Monera prokaryotes, then Protista, fungi, animalia, eukaryotes. Eukaryotes. So Monera includes the all prokaryotic organisms. Then Protista unicellular eukaryotes, fungi all fungal species. Then plants eukaryotic plants. Then animals all animal species. Second one, level of organization. Level of organization. So organization of these organisms. So what type of organization is present in organism? So generally prokaryotes are unicellular. Cellular organization is present. So these are mostly unicellular condition. So rarely multicellular. Rarely multicellular condition. So these are mostly unicellular condition, rarely multicellular. Then Protista are unicellular. Unicellular eukaryotes. So fungi mostly multicellular condition, rarely unicellular condition. Yeast is a unicellular fungi. So these are multicellular condition. Loose tissue is present. Loose tissue is present. Next one, plants are a multicellular condition. So tissue organization, then organ system is present. Organ is present. Organ system is absent in plants. So plants are multicellular condition, tissue organization, then organ organization is present. Next one, animals are multicellular. Multicellular. So tissue, then organ system is present. Animals are multicellular. Tissue, organ, then organ system. Then mode of nutrition. Mode of nutrition. In Monera, both autotrophs, then heterotrophs. Monera shows the both autotrophic organisms and heterotrophic organisms. So autotrophs means photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs condition. Heterotrophs saprophytic condition, then parasitic condition. Then Protista, these also autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs and heterotrophs. That means chrysophytes, dinoflagellates are autotrophic condition. Euglena may be autotrophs and heterotrophic condition. So mixotrophic condition. Then fungi all are heterotrophs. Fungi all are heterotrophs. These are the saprophytic or parasitic condition. Then plants are Autotrophic condition. Most of the plants are autotrophic condition. Some are heterotrophic. A few are heterotrophic. These are partial or complete heterotrophic condition. Next one, animals all are heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are holozoic. Holozoic mode of nutrition. Animal shows the holozoic mode of nutrition. Plant shows the absorption mode of nutrition. Cell wall. So in Monera, plant cell wall. Monera cell wall present or absent. Cell wall present or so mostly cell wall is present. Cell wall absent like a mycoplasmas. These cell wall composed by peptidoglycans. Peptidoglycans are mucopeptides. Peptidoglycans are mucopeptide. Then in protista, cell wall present or absent. Cell wall present or absent. So this cell wall composed by cellulose material. Different types of cellulose. Cell wall present or absent. Cell wall composed by cellulose. Then fungi cell wall present. This cell wall composed by modified cellulose. Nothing but hygiene. NAG. N-acetyl glucose, nitrogen containing glucose, cellulose. So fungi cell wall is present. This cell wall composed by the chitin material. There in plant cell wall is composed by cellulose and other materials. Then in animal cell wall is absent. So Monera cell wall present or absent. Cell wall composed by peptidoglycans and mucopeptides. So in Monera, for example, in mycoplasma cell wall is absent. Then protista cell wall present or absent, composed by cellulose. Fungal cell wall composed by chitin like a NAG, N-acetyl glucose minor. Then plant cell wall is present, composed by cellulose. Animal cell wall is absent. Then motility. So generally Monera's motility, locomotion is present or absent. Present or absent. Mostly locomotion is absent. Next one, protista. Present or absent. Then fungi motility is absent. So then in plants also motility is absent. Here motility is present. Next one, examples. So Monera, Archaebacteria. Examples of Monera: Archaebacteria, bacteria, cyanobacteria, mycoplasmas, actinomycetes. Examples of Monera: Archaebacteria, bacteria, cyanobacteria, mycoplasmas, actinomycetes. So protista example: rhizophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, protozoans, slime molds. Fungi example: Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes, Deuteromycetes. So plants all plants. Then animals all animals. So tree of a 5 kingdom system of a classification. Monera, protista, fungi, animalia, then plantae. So first evolved organisms are bacteria. So from the bacteria evolved the plants. So initially cyanophytes. Blue green algae, cyanobacteria. Then rhodophyte members. Then bacillariophyta, Phyophyta, Chlorophyta, Charophyta, then Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Spermatophyta. So first evolved organisms are bacteria, then bacteria to cyanophyta, blue green algae, archaebacteria, then cyanophyta, cyanobacteria, then bacillariophyce, algal members, then Phaeophyce, then rhodophyce members, then chlorophyce members, then Charophyta, then plants bryophytes, pteridophytes, and spermatophytes. Mixomycete, Dictyostelidae, Oomycetes, then Zygomycetes, Ascomycetes, then Basidiomycetes. So fungal members are Oomycetes, Zygomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes, Mixomycete, and Dictyostelidae. Then animals, Odifera, Arthropoda, then vertebrates. In vertebrates, Protocardata, Echinodermata, coelenterates. So in vertebrates, protochordates, echinodermids, coelenterates. So nematodes, chordates, molluscs. So it is a tree of a 5 kingdom system of a classification. So first evolved organisms are bacteria like archaebacteria, then cyanophyce members, then algal members chlorophyce, Phaeophyce, rhodophyce, then planta, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, then fungal members Oomycetes, Zygomycetes, Ascomycetes, and Basidiomycetes. Then animals, arthropods, vertebrates, and invertebrates. Invertebrates, prokaryotes, echinodermids, coelenterates, oriferous, then arthropod, chordates, then nematodes, molluscs, etc. Next one, in the year of 1990, Carl Posa scientist. In the year of 1990, Carl Posa scientist proposed the 6 kingdom system of classification. First 6 kingdom system of classification was proposed by Carl Posa scientist. He first time introduced a 3 domain system. 3 domain system. So domain is a nothing but higher than the kingdom. So generally in classification system, kingdom is a highest category. Higher than kingdom, it is a domain. He introduced a 3 domain system. These 3 domains are bacteria, archaebacteria, then eukarya. So he divided Monera into two domains, eubacteria, archaebacteria, then eukarya. So eukarya includes protista, then fungi, so plant, then any mammalian. Six kingdom system of classification, three domain system of classification by used rRNA or RNA 16S or RNA, that means differences in nucleotides and lipids in a cell membrane. He introduced the three domain system of classification by used rRNA 16S or RNA due to changes in nucleotides in RNA and lipids in plasma membrane, cell membrane. Then Cavalier-Smith in the year of 1998 proposed revised six kingdom system of classification. It is a revised system to Carl Loew's six kingdom system of classification. So modified to Carl Loew's six kingdom three domain system of classification. Cavalier-Smith in the 1998 proposed new revised six kingdom system of classification. So according to him, Cavalier-Smith, six kingdoms are eubacteria, then archaebacteria, then protista, fungi, plants, then any mammalian. Next one, in the year of 2005, BABU and et al. In the year of 2005, Brigadia and et al. Proposed the seven kingdom system of classification. Seven kingdom system of classification. It is a practical extension to six kingdom system of classification to Cavalier-Smith. In the year of 2005, Ruggiero scientists proposed the seven kingdom system of classification. It is a practical extension to six kingdom system of classification to Cavalier-Smith. So according to Ruggiero, seven kingdoms are So in seven kingdom system of classification, two super kingdoms are present. These are prokaryota and eukaryota. So these prokaryota includes eubacteria and archaebacteria. Eubacteria and archaebacteria. Then eukaryota includes protozoans, then promista, protista, fungi, plant, and mammalian. So in seven kingdom system of classification, two super kingdoms are present. These are prokaryota and eukaryota. So prokaryota includes eubacteria and archaebacteria. Eukaryota includes protozoans, protista, fungi, plant, and animalia. So chromista. So these chromista includes algal members. So which algal members contain chloroplast. So in chloroplast, chlorophylls are present. Chlorophyll A, C, and other type of chlorophylls are present. And related organisms to algal members. These are atoms, then blue-green algae, blue-green algae, then cryptomonas, Cryptomonad. So chromista includes all algal members. So which algal members contain chloroplast? These chloroplasts contain chlorophylls, chlorophyll A, C, and other type of chlorophylls. And other related organism, algal related organisms include chromista. These are diatoms, blue green algae, then cryptomonads, etc.